What is something regrettable that you did to your body that you would give your life savings to reverse? Story 1. Not what I did but what I didn't do. Take care of my teeth. I should have gotten orthodontic as soon as I started working. I am 65, have crooked teeth and cavities and cannot afford dental because Medicare does not cover it. Fixed income and old age sucks. Take care of your teeth. Story 2. Eating myself into obesity following a breakup. I was 75 kilograms prior, ate myself into 130 kilograms. Now sitting at 110 kilograms. I'm okay in life, but with working odd hours I don't commit to a healthy lifestyle, and it just didn't need to be this way. Story 3. Not loving it and enjoying it. All I could think was I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, I'm not good enough. Now I'm much bigger. I was hit by a drunk driver, so I'm also disabled, and when I look back I can't believe I thought that about my body at that time. Story 4. Get a procedure to fix my TMJ dysfunction. It's very rare, and now I'm an example in a medical journal. The Botox they injected into my TMJ traveled in a nerve and paralyzed damaged my soft palate. I sounded like a speaking deaf person for 4 months, and I feel my speech regress when I'm sick. It's never gotten better. That was 5 years ago. I still struggle with eating and drinking because my soft palate is damaged. Story 5. Wearing high heels 4 inches every day for work in my 20s. Did a number on my knees in my 30s. They would hurt when I do activities I enjoyed like hiking. Now in my 40s, the knee pain got better after switching to zero-drop minimal footwear, but would still hurt at times. I'm hoping it doesn't get too bad when I get older. Story 6. In 7th grade I repeatedly slammed my head into a steel locker door at school, trying to hurt myself. I have zero doubt that it did some damage to my brain. My life savings is only a 4-digit number. That's pretty cheap for neurosurgery. Story 7. Yeah, putting on weight. Don't do it, guys. There's irreversible damage, real self-hatred sometimes, and it restricts either what you can do or what you'll allow yourself to do. You'll hate pictures of yourself and despise when people want to do a group photo. You'll talk yourself out of opportunities, and it's so hard to shift the weight. You'll also never be able to be taken fully seriously at the doctors. The first thing they'll do is to tell you to lose weight as if it's a miracle cure to everything. Story 8. When I was 9, I got water stuck in my ear from a beach trip. None of the usual tricks to get it out were working, so I plugged my nose and blew as hard as I could. I completely decimated my eardrum, which has resulted in countless infections and hearing loss. Don't do it. Story 9. When I was younger I was climbing walls on a castle and lost my footing, so I jumped down 25 feet and smashed my heels. I had recently been approached to join a football team's academy, so my life would possibly be way different if that never happened. Edit. I was 15 years old at the time. Myself and a group of friends had walked a couple of miles outside the village to this castle because at the time, there wasn't really much to do for people our ages. I spent 2 weeks in hospital after the accident. My bedroom got moved downstairs because I was in a wheelchair for 6 months afterwards and crutches for about 5 months. It now hurts a lot being on my feet, so I need to try and get regular breaks and sit down or I start limping. I am now 36. There's a high chance that I will be needing a cane to walk in the next couple of years. I do play football now and then, but nowhere near the ability I had, and the impact on my feet means I do limp for a couple of days after. Edit 2. I want to say thanks for the upvotes. This is my most upvoted comment ever. Story 10. When I was 21 I fell asleep while driving and flipped my Jeep. I broke 3 vertebrae in my back and 2 in my neck. It's amazing I wasn't paralyzed. Doctor said I would have significant back problems when I got to around 40. I'm 44 now, still working without any restrictions, but I have spent a lot of time in my life now stretching and exercising my back to prolong my working ability and quality of life. I put everything I can afford in my 401k. I would definitely give up my 401k to not be crippled later in life, be it sooner or later. Story 11. I insisted on a vaginal birth instead of a C-section when I was struggling to deliver my son. They ended up doing an episiotomy and using forceps after I pushed for 8 hours. Ended up with a 4th-degree tear, muscle atrophy, and lifelong damage that will get worse when I hit menopause. I was so stubborn. I wish every day that I either didn't have an epidural or that I had a C-section. Story 12. Didn't protect my hearing starting at dances in junior high. Now I live with a scream of tinnitus on a daily basis that I would do anything to get rid of. Story 13. Tanning beds. WTF was I thinking? I just liked the warmth and solitude. It was my me time. I was so dumb and oblivious. I had never been in a sauna. That could have done the same for me without the melanoma and skin aging. Story 14. In 2010, after years of fighting against depression, I tried to commit suicide by self-immolating myself. Results: while I didn't die, thankfully I got burn injuries on 50 of my body and spent 4 months in hospital and underwent 14 skin transplant surgeries. Despite the painkillers, the pain was so intense that I prayed God countless times to let me die because I couldn't take it anymore. When I got released from hospital, I started my rehabilitation journey that, just like my time in hospital, was extremely painful, and my depression got even worse after I saw what I had done to my body. 15 went by, and while depression is something I will always have to live with, I regained confidence and am working hard to achieve my goals. To all the people who are suffering and think to end it all, please talk to someone. As long as you're still alive, there is always hope. P.S. If anyone have questions about my story, feel free to ask. P.P.S. My nickname is just a joke I got from this song. Story 15. Had Botox injections in Bangkok, in a clinic that was located in a shopping mall. I have no idea what they injected me with. It gave me horrible allergy and constant 247 itching. At first, it was located only in the injection region. I literally had to press my fingernails there and slightly scratch, otherwise it drove me insane, as it never stopped, and after a few weeks, these itching particles started to travel to other places in my body like 247 itchy stardust. So now it wasn't just my wrinkles above my nose that I felt the need to press my fingernails into, it was my full body, being completely allergy-free for the first 35 years of my life turned into MCOS in less than a week and taking 3 to 4 antihistamines daily. I take them ever since, otherwise the itching in my body becomes unbearable. All it took was one injection session, and everything completely wrecked, and it wasn't even doing anything to my muscle nerves, so it's a mystery what they actually injected. I have a photo with the doctor but cannot add it here. Story 16 started picking at my skin. It started with the little bumps on my arm, developed over the years to my whole body. I learned years after I started that I actually have OCD, eventually started pulling and plucking hairs too. Now I have full-blown dermatillomania and trichotillomania about 10ish years after I started. I don't know how to stop. It's a bad combo of the OCD compulsions and habit. Story 17 powder brows, which are just face tattoos that they lie and say are semi-permanent. They turn black-gray after a few days, never faded at all, and am pale and blonde. Waited years to remove them because I was too scared to ruin my face even more, just had my 5th laser removal session. They are orange now because removal takes forever and the ink slowly fades from black to red to orange to yellow. Then you may not be able to get rid of yellow. Powder brows are such a scam. Also, I wish I didn't get my other 2 tattoos. Story 18 joined the US military. I do not recommend it unless you're prepared to destroy your back and knees at minimum and potentially deal with a lifetime of PTSD. The US military is so good at traumatizing people that they don't even have to deploy you to do it. Story 19 actually nothing, maybe a little less sun exposure or drinking. That said, I was really beautiful in my 20s, so I give my life savings to look like that again, and to appreciate that short amount of youth before it's gone. When I was younger, I just thought I'd be pretty forever. But then you're late 30 aging and it's a pretty big blow to your confidence. At least for me it has been. First off, my life savings could barely get me a used Subaru under 100k miles. No, that's not much money. Well, second off, getting obese, easy. Story 20 destroying my body. Climbing, skydiving, dirt bikes, whitewater. Pretty anything that had the potential for injury I was in. So 55 now, heart attack at 42, broken 35 bones some multiple times, and now just in pain all the time. Story 21 nothing. As a former self-harmer and ED sufferer, I wouldn't change any of it. I still have physical leftover signs, but I've overcome a lot mentally. The scars serve as a reminder that things get better and people can grow and change. Story 22 started vaping. I had never struggled with addictions before, and I liked the social sharing aspect. For years later, I have issues with circulation to my fingers and toes, a constant dry and itchy nasal system, and random shooting lung pain. I quit cold turkey 13 days ago after the lung pain got really bad and scared me, but I can't believe that despite that I'm still craving it whenever something goes slightly wrong or I have a drink with friends. I hear it gets easier though. Story 23 possibly cutting myself. I'm not like super bummed about the scars, but they have limited me from pursuing some looks-based careers the way I've wanted to. Story 24 not really something I wanted to do, but when I was 13 I fell and hit my face on a bench. One of my front teeth broke off completely and had to get glued back. It fell out again 2 or 3 times after that and then had to get glued back again and again. Right now I am still living somewhat paranoid about it falling out again. It's been at least 10 years since the last time, but I'm still conscious about it and the stuff I eat. I regret walking next to that bench. Story 25 having breast implants for 23 years caused the scar tissue that interfered with muscle function. Implants removed in 2019 and now 5+ years later and thousands of dollars on physical therapy not covered by insurance. I can actually put my own hair into a ponytail. Anything you put in your body will create scar tissue. Don't do it. Learn to love your body as is and find someone that loves the natural you. Today's society has no idea the amount of long-term pain and physical damage they are doing to themselves in the name of vanity. Story 26 I killed myself on NY of 2018. Was found 2 days later by my mailman and airlifted to a hospital, placed into a medically induced coma, had a NDE when my brain was too swollen from the Benadryl I took, but they got it under control, my lungs started working again and I eventually recovered, and moved to the psych ward from ICU. I was released from the psych ward 3 months later and did it again after finding my roommate had hung herself in our bathroom, placed into another medically induced coma, and this time my heart stopped multiple times because the ventilator caused a massive cardiopulmonary infection. 0.8 chance of surviving the second coma and encephalitis, but I did. Woke up with DNR written in my own handwriting all over my body, got sent back to psych, then the doctors put me on disability and gave me brain shock treatments for the next 3.5 years and caused 2 strokes before discovering they had done 140 more shock treatments than legally allowed, and it wasn't even the treatment prescribed for chronic suicidality or prolonged grief syndrome, which were my diagnosis anyways. So now I have multiple sclerosis, chronic migraines, and epilepsy. I did it because I regretted how my parents died and how I blamed my dad for not calling the ambulance for my mother. I was so upset after they died I blew $480,000 cash inheritance in 11 months. Then I killed myself.
Story 27 what? Turnet down the music when you was a kid. 48 years with tinnitus. I cannot remember what silence sounds like.
Story 28 Severe Restriction Anorexia. I'm in recovery now, but the wild swings of body weight and stress of being malnourished for extended periods has my system, and the older I get the more things pop up that are commonly associated with eating disorder history. I would give anything to not have the side effects I will live with the rest of my life. Story 29 TLDR Always do your annual exams. Dark humor TLDR My abusive husband who tried to kill me leading to our divorce actually played the homicide long game with me by cheating on me while I was pregnant, giving me HPV from it, and me getting cervical cancer from it. I had a nodule on my cervix after I had my last child. I did not find it until after my ex-husband and I became intimate again when it was safe after birth. I went to the gyno. I was 24. I told her I felt the bump. It wasn't there before I gave birth and not after birth that I knew of either. I told her my husband was certain that it must be something related to giving birth, like it wasn't our third kid, and me stupid didn't really believe him, which is why I went to the gyno to make sure. She made me feel gross about noticing the nodule. How did you even feel your cervix? What do you mean, how do you know? And she basically forced me into admitting that my husband and I were doing a bit of mutual side-by-side fun when I felt it. She humiliated me. She said I'd already had my PAP for the year, and if I really wanted to have another one I could, but you'll have to pay for it out of pocket. She made me feel humiliated, and said it was basically no issue, and blew me off and made me feel disgusting. It made me afraid to go to the gynecologist again, and my ex convinced me that there was no reason to continue my annual checkups because there was nothing wrong, and we were monogamous, so nothing would ever come of it. Welp, in the fallout of my abusive divorce, it was found out that he had cheated on me. I got tested to make sure he didn't give anything to me, but I never got a PAP or internal exam because he had assaulted me, and I was traumatized as, after years of therapy, I finally got up the courage to go in for a proper annual internal exam. PAP, and all, it came back with abnormal cells. This was 9 years after I found that nodule. 9. I had to go for a biopsy. As I walk in, the NP says don't worry, it's only deadly if we don't catch it fast, like if you've had it for 10 years. I say it's been 9 and we were all just kinda somber after that. Biopsy came back bad, had to go to a special oncologist. He wanted to do another internal and sees the nodule, which is not where the biopsy was taken from. He asks about it, and I tell him the above story. He says it's probably benign, but we'll take it for testing just in case. When it came back, it was the worst affected area. It's had to have been there for years. That nodule is what made me need to have a conical biopsy, so I could never effectively carry kids again if I wanted. It also caused me to need a hysterectomy, which makes the prior point moot anyway. I had a weird autoimmune reaction to having the biopsies that caused my ovary to swell to the size of a baseball. I was on bed rest for months to not get torsion from the ovary. I was in and out of the ER throughout to be ruled out for emergency surgery for the ovary multiple times. I spent months thinking I was going to die at any wrong turn, literally, like, if I turned wrong I could twist it and die. Oh, totally forgot to add, they thought with the time frame that the cancer may have moved to my ovary, especially because of the crazy ovary symptoms I was having, taking my potential survival chances after surgery and radiation down to 15. So, that was fun. I then had the hysterectomy. Finally, I got home after hospital recovery and bled out. I literally almost died. I bled half my blood volume into my abdomen. All in all, this entire debacle lasted from February to the actual hysterectomy in June, to not being released from hospital until early July, to being bedridden during recovery from the blood collection and a follow-up infection there till late August. I also had to keep following up with hematology because I kept bleeding like crazy without anyone really understanding why. I wasn't normal and able to move normally again until October-ish. If I recall correctly, walking around for Halloween with my youngest was still a bit of an issue. If I had just stuck to my gut when I first felt that bump. If I had just insisted I needed that PAP and paid out of pocket. If I had just listened to my gut and gone back for my annuals. If I had just sucked it up after the rape and gone in for a proper rape exam. If I had just gone to any annual after that. If I had known that STD panels don't cover HPV, you need a PAP for that. If I had just known or been braver or angrier, or anything at all could have been avoided. If I could have hated him the way he hated me. If. I spent months with doctors telling me I could die at any moment and my issue was urgent but not emergent until you are actively dying, so we can't do the surgery yet, all while on bed rest. All while getting more biopsies and thrown at me, all as an only parent to 3, not single parent. My mom had to move in with me temporarily to help me with the kids because I literally wasn't allowed to do anything but walk to and from the bathroom. It scared the out of my kids, it scared the out of me, it scared the out of my moms and my dads. And it all could have been avoided if I just did my annual GYN exams and got my PAPs. Story 30-45 years of terrible diet, no exercise and a decade plus of alcoholism will lead to a lot of minor chronic conditions as well as all the big stuff you're warned about. I haven't been able to clean for several years, think it's a partial internal prolapse. Sometimes stuff manages to squeeze through, but often I have to stick a finger up there to move the squished together parts of my rectum out of the way. Story 31 Telling my 14-year-old self that they were perfect and to not let our mother convince us to have plastic surgery. I grieve what my nose would have looked like every day. I look at pictures of little me and there's absolutely nothing wrong with my nose except, as my mother put it, it being a Jewish nose like my father's. The shape was a bit different, that's all. Story 32 Untreated consecutive concussions. My memory is now, also didn't rehab a knee injury in my early 20s properly, and now my back and hip are paying for it. Story 33. I'm covered in tattoos, which I started getting at 18 because I was a part of that scene. Now I'm a very humble, outdoorsy person that doesn't care about being perceived as cool. I don't regret them all but wish I wasn't so heavily tattooed now. Story 34. Allowed a violent abuser to determine my worth. Though my mental state regarding my worth is excellent, my body is paying a heavy price in my advanced years. Story 35. Depo-Provera shot. I can't take most forms of estrogen birth control, and I have extremely long and heavy periods. I was 18 at the time, and my gyno mentioned the Mirena IUD would be a great option. I tried the IUD, but about a week later, my body rejected it. I was young and didn't know that I am entitled to a second one per the manufacturer, and my gyno didn't tell me I could try again. Instead, he offered the Depo-Provera shot. He made it sound really enticing and failed to mention any side effects. I worked and went to school full-time, so the idea of not having to worry about a pill sounded great. I said sure, and he gave me a shot the same day. I was on my period when I received the shot. Fast forward 3 months, and I've gained 40 pounds, and I've had my period for the entire duration. Because I was young, busy, and naive, I waited until the appointment to receive my second dose to mention the weight and period. The doctor said that they're probably unrelated and gave me a second shot. I gained an additional 20 pounds, and I had my period for another 3-ish months. I canceled my next appointment, and I just refused to go to a doctor for 3 to 4 years. The weight gain crushed me. It was so fast and I already struggled with really low self-esteem. I also developed a lot of stretch marks which I'm fine with now, and my food cravings completely changed. It took a long time for me to stop wearing long-sleeve t-shirts and sweaters year-round. The physical and mental toll took a really long time to recover from. Story 36. Drinking every day. I started drinking every day because I could not deal with the stress from the pandemic. I tell myself that I really had no other outlet. Can't smoke weed due to asthma making me hack my lungs out whenever I breathe in anything other than air. Did not want to try anything harder because they are illegal. I just wanted the pain of every day to go away. For years later I'm drinking at least a third of a handle of vodka every single night and barely feeling a buzz from it. I want to stop. I truly do. It's so hard. Alcohol is so much more addictive than people think, and going cold turkey can legitimately kill you, which makes me want to try tapering off. Every day I think to myself I'm only going to pour 1 shot an hour. That's all I'm allowed to drink. And every night I end up pouring myself more somehow. If you want to drink alcohol, that's fine. Do it socially. Do it with friends. Don't do it alone. Don't do it every day. I don't even want to think of what my liver looks like right now. Story 37. Getting an IUD. Insertion was traumatic. 2 years have followed before I finally got it removed. Gained over 50 pounds. Was pouring with sweat constantly and ruined my mental health. Within 3 months of getting it removed everything was back to normal and the weight coming off rapidly gave me gallstones. Story 38. Having had a double mastectomy top surgery right after I turned 20. It's almost 11 years later and I wish I hadn't surgically altered my body. I regret it and am forever stuck this way now. I wish I had listened to my therapist about doing treatment for my multiple years worth of abuse-based PTSD. I was already a self-harmer for years at this point and thought I knew what was best for myself with transitioning, but I ran so hard with it must be gender dysphoria. It didn't fix my issues. I masked it with something new. My body dysphoria is still persistent as it's been my whole life. I still take testosterone to this day, but I just wish I could go back and help younger me that just wanted to feel safe and okay. I miss my old body and who I was. Story 39. Pushed through the pain. I thought intense pain was just part of intense exercise. Turns out, I had an undiagnosed connective tissue disease, and am now a wheelchair user at 50. Pain is your body telling you something, and that message should never be ignored. Story 40. Skin picking. I started at 9 years old after a traumatic event. Never stopped. My upper body is so scarred. A doctor once asked me if I have neurofibromatosis, and the skin on my arms is basically numb by now. Story 41. Heavy drug use between ages 14 to 21. Really set my developing self up for some problems I'm currently dealing with still today at 28. Clean since 21. Bar a little bit of devil's lettuce here and there. Drugs really you up, especially when you use them to cope with trauma from abusive family members and the like, at least in my experience. Story 42. I sprinted down the stairs in my current house when I first moved in. While in socks, I ended up slipping and falling so hard I dented my butt. I went to my doctor right after, and she said it was irreversible without surgery. I legitimately separated the fat in my butt by falling so hard. It hurt terribly for weeks, took months to heal, and am constantly reminded by it when I look in the mirror. I know it's superficial, but it bothers me a lot. I call it damaged goods. Story 43. Laser hair removal. I'm a trans man, and miss my beard. I was trying so hard to conform to what society wanted from me as someone assigned female at birth. Story 44. I should have just given in to a second section, not tried to do a VBAC after a C-section. A doctor didn't warn against a VBAC, but they were extra poosy with a section, which I had a hard time with the first time around 12 years between kids and didn't want to deal with that awfulness. I opted for a trial of labor to encourage my body to go through the natural route to cause the least amount of stress. Backed up by a midwife. Well, labor went slowly but smoothly until it didn't. I ended up vomiting all over the OR, passing out and almost dying from a ruptured uterus. My baby was born in my abdomen and unresponsive, and the uterus was so destroyed that it took 5 hours of surgery, 5 if you count the section portion, 2 of lost blood, and I lost my entire uterus hysterectomy due to the massive hemorrhaging from the rupture. My baby is healthy, but I deeply grieve the loss of my ability to have any more. I'm not even in my 30s. Story 45. Drinking, destroying my pancreas, kidneys and colon. Too late to reverse, but hopefully some of my organs are healing. If you're worried about your drinking habits, just stop altogether. It's not worth it. Story 46. Probably when me and my friends started our own hardcore backyard wrestling promotion. I'm like 85 sure that Summer of Fun when I was 15 is responsible for the back problems I have at 35. Story 47. A few years ago I wore a cape on a Halloween bicycle ride like an idiot. It got stuck in the front wheel. I endoed and scaled my face into the concrete. The skin on the inside of my lip got all, and now my smile looks nothing like it used to. I hate that I was so stupid, and now I hate the way my smile looks. Story 48. I had a wart on my hand that was there for years and I could never get off the shelf medications to work, so I got some strong vinegar and repeatedly applied it with a damp piece of cotton ball. Over time the skin in the area started to get really damaged, but I kept going even though there were open sores wounds on my hand because I wanted to nuke the wart too. Turns out that all I did was create permanent scarring on my hand surrounding the wart, but the wart was still there. Ended up going to a doctor to freeze it off, which is what I should have done in the first place. I was raised in a household with parents that were deathly afraid of doctors and thought they should be avoided as much as possible. Story 49. I got my eyebrows microbladed. 10 years ago they were telling us it will fade in a couple of years since it's only in the outer layers of the skin. I don't know why I believe that. It's a face tattoo. 10 years later, my brow bone is orange and I have to cover it up with concealer. Maybe it will fully fade one day. Story 50. Listened to loud music on my Walkman in the late 70s. Enough to go through several pairs of headphones per player because I blew them out. Now I use hearing protection when I cut my lawn. Story 51. Bulimia. I didn't ever think it was a good idea per se, but when I started in 7th grade I had no idea the absolute disaster it would do to my body. Thankfully I have always had good dental insurance. I've needed it. Most of my back teeth have essentially crumbled out of my mouth and are all crowns plus one implant. I think I only have about 4 teeth left that are not crowns. Story 52. Fell out of bed onto my back, broke vertebrae and have since suffered from terrible chronic back pain no one can help. If I could just go back in time and erase that night. Story 53. I had to have my upper front 4 teeth removed due to lack of care. Have had 3 sets of dentures made and no dentist can seem to make them fit. Getting implants is the goal, but it's simply unfeasible even with dental insurance. People treat you poorly, you can't eat many foods, makes it hard to speak proper. Take care of them or it will become something you regret deeply. Story 54. Back injury led to weight gain and not being able to do my hobbies. Tried to reclaim my life and hit my hobbies. Tore a tendon in my shoulder, which led to even more weight gain, so I tried to start running again, and tore a tendon in my foot. I went from an active, healthy 30-something to essentially homebound at 40. Largely self-inflicted, and it's actually going to cost my life savings to try to reverse. The lesson here is never try to improve your life, you'll just end up worse than before. Story 55. TW for SH and ED gets pretty graphic and I do mention calories at one point. I cut myself for 10 years. When I say I cut myself people tend to think superficial light wounds. Obviously no shame to those people. Everything is serious, everything is important, and that is just as serious as people who go deeper. However, my wounds were not superficial. I started at 11, and they were at the time. By the time I hit 14 I was escalating and was hitting the dermis layer. I was finally accepted into therapy after being turned away at 12 for self-harm, and was told I wasn't cutting deep enough to be a concern. UK, NHS-funded services. They never brought it up again, so I just hit it better and continued. By 17 I was hitting subcutaneous fat. Again, all cuts pose risk, all are infection risks, all are damage to your body. However, the risk is substantially higher for infection at this level. Naturally, I didn't take care of my injuries. It was a daily thing. Often it was the first thing I'd do when I woke up, last thing I did before bed. I'd carry razors to my shitty part-time job hotel cleaner and would do it on my breaks between classes. I'd walk around with 200 open wounds, most of fat depth, at any given time all the time. Most people will tell you the thing they regret is the scarring. Honestly, I don't give a, my body has been this way for so long, I think I'd feel very strange without them. For a while after I quit, I think I'd have traded in for smooth skin. But nah, what I want to change is the health issues I've developed because of it. Nerve damage is one. But the biggest issue was the fact I bled so much, so often, to the point in the end I quite literally didn't bleed unless I went pretty deep. My blood was a weird orange color. I looked like I was dying, I couldn't stand without passing out, constant heart palpitations. I've been clean a few years now, and I still have issues with it. My hair thinned to the point I was starting to bald a bit, and my final year self-harming was combined with an eating disorder. I ate less than 500 calories daily, every day, so that just sped up the balding. Haha. It never really grew back, and I'm hella self-conscious about it now. I'm in constant pain and I can't help but think it's probably partly because I was wilding out like that back in the day. I am clean now though, eating disorder is recovered, I'm still crazy, but I am at least not engaging in those behaviors anymore. I don't believe people talk enough about the long-term health issues that come from self-harm. I don't think it's been overly studied. and I'm aware I was kind of stupid with it, but still. Story 56. Getting some huge symbol tattooed onto my shoulder blade after a friend with questionable taste insisted we get another matching tattoo. We had previously gotten matching tattoos, but they were fun. This one is huge and absolutely hideous. I can't wear racerback shirts or anything else that bears that skin because I am mortified. We're no longer friends not because of that thought, and I would do anything for it to go away. Story 57. Not enough breaks while gaming. At the ripe old age of 23, I'm showing serious symptoms of carpal tunnel. Stretch your hands, move them around, do not keep them in the WASD pose for literal hours without breaks. Story 58. Lost 70 pounds following a borderline disordered eating community. It trashed my mental and physical health and I ended up gaining it all back and then some. Story 59. Drugs. When I was younger, I had an amazing memory which I spent half my young life destroying with drugs, followed by a decade of alcoholism due to depression and regret. I still struggle 20 years later but have managed to be reasonably successful. Story 60. Twins. I wouldn't trade them for the world, but man, they did a number on my body. I had them at 34 weeks and they were both 7 pounds. The damage they did to my bladder, pelvic floor, uterus, etc. has been rough. Story 61. I had bulimia when I was younger. I still suffer the effects now. I destroyed my teeth with the vomiting and had to have all my top teeth removed and now have a denture in my late 20s. I can also only eat when someone else is eating, and I always feel sick after eating, even if it's a crisp. It's psychological and 7 years of therapy hasn't helped. Story 62. Avoid water for 25 years. I'm just now getting into the habit of drinking water at 27. It was always fresh juice or soup, still not much soda, and my stomach has drastically changed and I'm no longer as bloated as I used to be. I used to look pregnant all the time and now I don't. I have abs. I don't even work out. Story 63. I wouldn't smoke tobacco and I'd like to reverse any of those effects, which isn't possible. I'd also like my dead tooth to be cleverly replaced so I don't look like I have gross teeth. Story 64. I gained 100 pounds. I was a former athlete that was always fit and lean, but I just started eating like there was no tomorrow and stopped working out. I lost it all and have kept it off for 10 years, but that was so hard on my body, and hard mentally as well. I lost years of my life due to the depression and anxiety of being obese. Not going to events, not seeing family, always being embarrassed, the self-loathing that I did it to myself, feeling like a sloppy dumpy mess, not being in photos, not wanting to be intimate, although my king of a husband was always affectionate and never once brought up my weight gain. More power to the big girls who can embrace being obese and body positivity. I was not one of them.